Hey everybody, it's Bootsy,
And it's Cocoism
and welcome to Bootsies Book Club.
and such.
What? And we're here in Muir Beach, California.
Which, wow, she is a jewel hidden in the hills.
The view is so beautiful.
Isn't it so crazy? I lived in San Francisco for so long and had no idea this was here.
Same for me.
It was pretty magical.
There's just so much over the bridge, there's so
Mhm.
many places to go by the ocean, cute little beach towns, and whether it's vineyards,
Yeah,
there's so much, and we happen to have found a great new spot
yes.
for the family
We
and
had a little,
such.
we had a little family reunion
It was giving family reunion.
retreat. It was giving like it could have been filmed, like just craziness.
Lots. The
Yeah.
mamas, the papas.
Yes, the babies, the dogs, Matthew,
It
your mother.
was a sweet time. The beach.
Yeah, the
I live in this
stills.
jumping in the ocean era of my life.
I know you're in
Bring me
it,
to a beach, I will jump in.
even if it's freezing. At first, we stepped into that ocean. I was like, oh my gosh. Then once you fully get in, it's like you're being baptized. I've never been baptized, so that's my understanding of
It's
it,
I
washing
leave.
everything away.
Not everyone is baptized, but
Sure not.
in, as my friend Rosemary would say, you can't dance at every ball.
Period.
But that brings me to Dancer from the Dance, which we happen to be on chapter 3. It is a slow read, and not to brag how busy my life is, but there's only a certain amount of hours in the day,
Yeah.
and as much as I think that I'm going to be reading, and on this vacation, I'm just like lounging with my book on, and just by the view. It doesn't really happen because even on vacation, life is busy. As I was saying last night, there is some entertaining to be had.
Yeah.
That we've had visitors stop by. We're cooking. We're managing everybody, because so
Yeah.
everyone that is a guest here with us is a happy camper.
Period.
But Dancer from the Dance chapter 3 is just giving me a whole perspective on life, because Malone is going back, and we're just kind of going with him to his childhood, right? And like growing up, and then and he talks about how he had like a typical kind of, blue collared childhood, where like there was like everybody was working. He did really well in school. He happened to grow up like really religious, believing in God, and having this kind of like that inserted in his life, and didn't really explore a lot about his homosexuality as a young
Mm,
person. He just felt very like, what was expected of him, that's who he was.
yeah.
And there was not much around that.
Yeah. And what year was that? That was in I couldn't tell that part, like what era that was. Because in the 70s, he was older. So it must have been like in the 50s or 60s. So I could only imagine, you know, being a queen then. Man, there's a part in the chapter where he talks about when he realizes that he has cancer and that is him being gay.
Right. I mean, it took a while for him to get there. Yeah, I mean, he goes to boarding school when he's 15, and
Mhm.
he's goes to law school. He's always very successful and very good looking, and just very hardworking through education and whatever he was doing. And he he sees his friends all engaging in relationships. They're dating, they're having sex, like he's browsing through like Playboy magazines, and he's just doing the typical things that his straight friends are doing. And he's hanging out with couples, his friends who are like just dating and things like that. And he doesn't find himself doing any of those things. And he kind of questions like why,
Yeah.
or why not me, or why not yet. and it comes to, a point of his life where he is living, renting a room in a home that uh, a woman that he lives with happens to like hire someone to come take care of the garden, and his name is Michael. And um, Malone ends up coming home from work to help work in the garden with Michael. And they spend a lot of time laughing and getting to know each other. And that's when Malone just starts having feelings of a relationship or a friendship or something that he cares about.
Something's boiling up, something is
He
about to happen, and then it does. What happens,
and it
Boots?
does. And he realizes that there's emotion involved, and when Michael decides to go away to college, and Michael's like this beautiful like swimmer, and Michael decides to go away to college, and it's going to be his last day on the job, and Malone goes to wish him, good luck and everything, and he can barely contain himself. Like his knees are shaking. He's really nervous. He's like, has like a frog in his throat, and he's hoping like Michael doesn't really see all of that. And he's just like having this like rush of emotions over him. And he has never felt like that before. And he doesn't know what is going on. So he he literally just rushes away and gets to his room and kind of has a really emotional meltdown. And through that, he comes to this place of realizing that, it's like, that
He's gay.
he's gay, right?
He's gay, he's a queen, and it's hard to be, but I mean, it's so relatable.
Right.
These stories are so relatable. Like before you go into the next part, I want to go back to when you had mentioned about the Playboys, and it reminded me of growing up. Well, I think I was like 15, 16. My uncle gave me this ridiculous amount of Playboy magazines. And I started looking it through them, and I was just like, this is so interesting. Like this is not doing anything for me. But then there was these two little photos, and I remember like super vividly of like men. And those were the photos that I would go to.
Right.
Yeah, but then when I turned 18, I like gifted them back to him, and I was like, I literally have never gonna look at these, so I want you to have them, and I hope he has them. I hope that because my aunt likes to throw everything away, so
Mm.
hopefully he still gets to have a little corner in his existence.
I have some similar memories of just I would be wandering the desert in Joshua Tree, and there would just be these old beat up porn magazines, like blowing through the wind, like with the tumbleweeds.
Oh, you're like catching them?
Yeah, and I'd be like, "What is this?" And I would just flip through, and yes, it was a lot. It was TNA, and
Did you ever get to see those ones that were like drawings?
it's not
I wish I would have
something
kept
easy.
them because I had just so many crazy things that happened growing up
Oh
and
my.
things that I kept and like hid because I was like, oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Like we were going through my grandma's house and she was like a swinger, our great grandma's
So
house.
swinger gonna swing.
Yes, then we're going through it and then I find these magazines of like pretty much like almost like illustrated like but like black and white photos of men and all different sizes. It literally showed you each kind and what it would look like.
Well, you really had some visuals as a
Yeah, and I
youngster.
swooped that shit out of my grandma's house and I put it in my little bag. I was young and I'm taking this home and I had it for a long time. The only reason why I got rid of it is because it's falling apart. I wish I would have kept it because some of those would be like dope to be framed. Like now I would get them framed.
Well, now it would be art,
Yeah.
and it would be like you
But it
said.
probably wasn't something that my Aunt Cindy threw away
Oh
because we went through a
wow.
rough time where she threw everything
Oh, wow.
away.
So let's get back to that moment. And his own work kept Malone busy. And one night he came home from a long day of writing loan agreements and heard the widow tell him it was Michael's last day there. He had taken a job in Colorado for the summer and would be off to college at Beloit in the fall. Malone could not understand the emotion that suddenly drained the blood from his limbs. He walked down from the house in his suit and tie from J Press, carrying his briefcase full of his rough drafts, as if to appear nonchalant, and found Michael standing with a bag of powdered insecticide. carefully spooning it into a 5-gallon jug. It was then he felt his own wounds. It was very definite, as if he had been stabbed. The very best of luck, Malone smiled as he shook his hand, hoping only that Mike could not see through the gray cloth of his suit the vibration created by the fact that Malone's knees had suddenly started to shake violently. He did not trust his voice either, and so he turned away. I mean, what a moment, because we could all relate to that, whether it was your first crush, your first conversation, your first stare in the eyes to like I remember being in high school and I had a couple of crushes. I would never say their names here, but I
Oh
know
wow.
if they heard this,
Me
they
and you
would,
are totally different.
we were gazing into each other's eyes and we would do that all constantly.
Oh, you guys would gaze in each other's eyes.
Yeah, gaze in each other's eyes.
Do you know any of them now?
I don't. Do a little peek on Instagram, but
Yeah, do a little deep dive.
it was a lot of gazing and it wasn't one-sided. I mean, I was gazing and they were gazing back, and it was this like silent love affair,
Mm.
and I lived for it because I was like, I know you like me. And and when we talked, of course you get nervous, you're like, what? And I went to their house and it was just all these things where it's
Oh
like, oh
wow.
my God, it's like my crush, like we're just like having this non-physical, just like very emotional, energy. And it reminds me of that.
Blessed be the fruit. I mean, what a story.
Yeah, and it's amazing to hear your experience too. Like I've never heard you talk about this. Thank you for sharing about this,
I have
like
such a dense
the
history.
artsy porn that you
So
saw as a
fierce.
child. That
Yes. I mean, again, that house was crazy to go through. There was some things that I was like, whoa. It was like my first glimpse into like what actually goes on outside of like PG situations.
oh my God, you're probably like my grandmama. She wild, honey. Like
Yes,
she out here.
yes, bedazzled things. All the
Wow.
things.
I mean, that would, again, it's like free love, right? I
Oh, I'm
mean,
so down for all of
that's like
it.
sex, no body shaming, just loving on each other and boom, boom, boom. I
Oh
mean,
wow. Boom, boom, bow.
the
Who was your
sex,
first crush?
who was my first crush?
Yeah, like when I say who was your first crush, I mean like they didn't know. Like I'll tell you mine. Mine was sixth grade. Well, actually, this is the first one of like my age. Sixth grade, Timothy. He was giving like kind of Eminem vibes, white but kind of hood. Always wore jean suits. You remember like the what was that called? What was Jay Z's brand?
Um,
Rockaware,
oh, okay, Little
like that kind
Rockaware.
of vibe. What was the other one? Fubu.
Fubu.
Because I grew up in
I
Central
never wore those
Valley.
brands, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't either. My dad tried to buy them for me, and I'm like, I'm not gonna wear this. But remember, he was just talking about outfits that he wants to give, and I'm kind of like so down to see.
Yeah, I mean the jackets, like I would be down. You should get those items from your dad. That is
So
so sweet that he wants to give them to you. So I
yeah,
could
super
see where
sweet.
you rocking it.
Rocket, rocket, rocket.
But for me, like I'm not in a space to reveal my crushes because,
Oh wow.
not named, it's just so personal to me. And it's like I I would only name some sort of crush like after high school, not anyone in high school because it's
No,
just
mine was Timothy in sixth grade.
yeah. So yeah, I'm not.
No,
I
like
mean, Timothy, hello.
just like you don't say anyone's name, but like, what was that moment where you're like, oh my gosh, like,
Well, I just said it. I mean, it was in high school where
oh,
I I just when I
got it.
had a love
The
affair
gazing,
gazing at
got it. Gazing
somebody.
love affair.
Yeah, I mean that was my first
Cute.
crush that gave me, the knees shaking, like
Oh,
the nervousness, and
but
yeah, I had a few of those in high school.
oh,
you
little
know.
boots is booting.
Right. So like Malone gets super emotional that he's having this reaction and he's up in his room journaling and he sees Michael, basically walk away and Michael's off and he's so frustrated not knowing what to do with himself that Malone jumps in his car and he's, just driving around like aimlessly and like lost. And he pulls over to like a gay cruising area and he basically gets out and he goes into the woods and just gets on his knees and blows somebody, and he commits an act, of sex, and it's like an explosion because he's never done anything like that before. So when he gets back, it's like all this occurred in a state both trance-like and sharply conscious, as if another being had momentarily occupied the physical shell that was Malone. When he got home and emerged from his dream play like a man who was just murdered someone and returns to his apartment and sits down to a bowl of soup, Malone took a shower that lasted over an hour and washed his mouth out with soap. He sat up the rest of the night writing in his journal. He wrote a poem. He wrote of the fact that for the first time he had used his mouth for something other than those two blameless functions, speech and the ingestion of food, and that now he had profaned it utterly. Those lips, that throat, which were stained with milk and apples, bread and life giving things, had been soiled beyond redemption now. I mean,
The slowdown that you just did on those two words.
I
Just take
mean,
note.
he was going through it. I mean, and it could be anybody. I mean, it's like I don't know what it is about childhood, but there's some sort of, there's some sort of guilt being built
Yeah.
into who you are or what a man is supposed to be or like what,
So strange.
if a religion's involved, if heterosexuality is involved, if it's all mixed in together, you just don't know like how that's going to feel the first time unless you're just raised in a very open-minded, non-religious, sort of like family. And
Mm.
that's what I love about, me as personally being a gay family, and like just being so open with our kid about love who you're gonna love. There's no shame and there's nothing but love to be had, whoever that is. So, I feel for what he felt that he needed to do, but and also how ashamed he was of himself.
Yeah. Heavy stuff. Heavy, heavy stuff.
It's so heavy.
It's almost like you can connect to everything so much that it's almost like uncomfortable reading this sometimes. Because some of the moments are like, whether you've been in a situation similar or not, it's like you're like you can connect and you're like, wow, that's nuts. And I know how that felt
Right.
and how it doesn't change, and being the family like we are, it's you really got to be open because it's like he's gonna go out into the world, and I'd rather him go out into the world at least understanding it a little bit more than I did.
Right.
Because I was just, I mean, I was given a lot, but I wasn't taught a lot of like how other people live or other people can live, or even open to the idea of like what can be, like how you really can live all of these different lives and it's a choice that you make and you really can do anything and to not have this pressure to be this one thing or be this one religion or like this or that. You could just be whatever you want to be.
Right.
And it really, I remember mom saying that, like, literally, you can be whatever you want to be. And I like look back on just the life that I've lived thus far, and I'm like, I think about all the choices that I made, and it's like, I don't regret any of them, you know?
Right.
And it's like, like we talk about a lot, it's like at any moment you can make another change, do something totally different. And it doesn't have to be the same. It's not like this painted map that, like, that's what we're going to do, that's it. It's
Mm-hmm.
always changing, always evolving. And I think that is like the lesson.
Right. And discovery can start at any place and many places. So a young person having their first crush, their first kiss, some people get to adulthood and they haven't even experienced those things. So you just never know when that's going to develop. And then when that's going to open yourself up to whatever world you're going to be in, whatever space you're going to hold for love and attraction. So, I think Malone, this is where he started. That's where it began for him
Mhm.
as an adult, and he's off to the races, and so from that point off, he still cuts himself off from the gay self of him, and he closes up after that encounter, and he focuses on work again. He kind of hides out from community. He, is just kind of afraid of it all, and he does get to a point of having another interaction,
Yeah.
and someone comes to the office to drop off some telegrams, and it's a hot Puerto Rican, and he just backs start being rubbed, and eyes rubbing of the chest, and there they go, and it's another hot encounter for Malone, and he's like, you know what? This is me. And that was the like what really opened the doors for him to like know who he was, what he wanted, and what he could not be without.
Mm, period.
Right?
Nicely said.
And
These chapters are dense. I couldn't imagine like rushing through them because each section is like so dense.
right. Imagine a pleasure in which the moment of satisfaction is simultaneous with the moment of destruction. To kiss is to poison, lifting to your lips this face after which you have ached, dreamed, longed for. The face shatters every time, and with one final stroke, he scrawled across the page, if the eye offends thee, pluck it out. He battled so much with letting himself be who he was, and thank God he gets to a place of letting go.
Yeah, even the part where he lives with the older lady, like, and the way he talks about how she smells like, is it cold cream? It makes
Right.
me like I don't even know what cold cream is, but I need to know. But it was like she just that's what she smelled like, and I also think that that relationship is so special because also like being a gay man that those kind of relationships happen where you meet these people and these older people, older women specifically, and then you have these relationships that are like pretty fierce.
Like motherly,
Yeah,
like
and safe and like
safe.
even if there's judgment, there's more understanding than judgment, you know? Like
I feel you. I totally have had
and sometimes they
relationships
work
like that too. They work for a while, right?
or they just are for that time,
Right.
you know? And then you just evolve and that's it.
And Malone gets to a point of, like we said, accepting himself, and he was completely free now to pursue with the same passion for success he had brought to squash matches and the law. The one thing that had eluded him utterly till now, love. For love, he felt as he watched the Puerto Rican boys unloading soda pop for the gem spa on his new corner. Love was all in life that mattered. Without it, there was no point in having lived at all. And so the last Sunday evening of August 1973 found him sitting on his stoop like a monk who comes finally to the shrine of Santiago de Compostela, devoted not to Christ in whom he no longer believed, but love.
Period.
I mean, I love this book. Chapter 3 is giving it to me, and I hope you guys are reading along with
It's
us
getting
at Bootsies Book
juicy.
Club and such. And let's keep it going. We'll see what happens next, and I can't wait. So thank you for joining.
XOXO. Bye.
Toodaloo.
Meow.